Hi everyone. In this video, I'm going to be talking about fractions, the parts of a fraction and what they represent. So when we have a fraction, we have two parts. If we have the fraction, let's say 1/2, the 1 or the number on the top is called the numerator, and the 2 or the number on the bottom is called the denominator. So when we're talking about a numerator and denominator, the denominator tells us how many total pieces. And the numerator tells us the number we have. So if I'm thinking about the fraction 1/2, if I'm going to draw it, that means how many parts do I have? I have 2 parts. And how many are going to be shaded? Well, the numerator tells us how many are shaded, so that would be 1 shaded. So if this was my fraction, I would then shade in 1. So that would be 1/2. All right. Now, if I have a few different fractions, maybe I have thirds and halves and fourths. So let's look at these 3. So if I'm talking about halves and I have 1/2, that means I have 2 pieces. So my denominator is 2. And if I have 1/2, that means I have 1 out of 2 colored in. That's represented as 1/2. If I'm talking about thirds, I have 3 pieces, and as you can see, 3 is the denominator, the number on the bottom. And if I have 1 of those colored in, it's 1/3. And the same thing with fourths. If I have 4 equal pieces, that means the denominator on the bottom is 4. And if I have 1 of those, I have that 1/4, 1/4. Okay? We can also represent our fractions as circles, as I showed before. So if I have halves, it will look like that. That means there's 2 equal pieces. If I'm talking about thirds, there's 3 equal pieces. And if I'm talking about fourths, there's 4 equal pieces. And we can have all different sizes. But when we're comparing two fractions, we want to talk about them as being the same shape. So in this case, I would be comparing either my rectangle versions of the fractions or my circles. I'm not going to compare a circle with a rectangle. So if I'm looking at my rectangles now, I saw that I had 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4. And you can see those listed next to it. Now if I look at my circles and I want to make 1/3, 1/2, 1/3, and 1/4, this is what they'll look like. But if I can also have this fraction as a circle, where if we have halves, we could have more than one piece. And if I have thirds, I could have more than one piece. And the same thing if I have fourths. We don't always just have one of everything. So what I want to show now It's if I have my halves and I have two of them, that's called two halves, or we would simplify that as one whole. With our thirds, if I have two of them, it's 2 over 3, 2/3. And our fourths, if I have two of them, and it doesn't matter where I have my two, if I have 2/4, that's 2 over 4, 2 out of 4. That can also be simplified as 1/2. If you look, so these are just a few of the different ways that we can compare fractions, look at different fractions, and name them. So, as I said, if we're talking about this 2 halves, we can say that that is equal to 1 whole. The same thing we said, 2/4 is the same as 1/2. So if we look at that compared to the 1/2 before, they are the same amount colored in here. All right, so those are just a few examples of fractions and how they look and how we name them. And remember that the top number is the numerator, that's how much we have, or the shaded amount, and the denominator is the bottom number, how many pieces there are total. Okay, so look for a few other videos I'm going to be posting on fractions here soon as well, and hope some of the other videos help you with some of your math lessons at home.